So your portfolio is probably down 20 to 30% since the beginning of this year, right? For those of you wondering why Warren Buffett didn't buy any stocks in 2020 and the beginning of 2021, he knew how the stock market would react to the high inflation rate. And this is why he's the Oracle of Omaha. And because he knew how people were being greedy in 2020 and 2021, he was being very patient until the market starts to become very fearful. And now the market is being extremely fearful. Warren Buffett was right about inflation during the 2021 shareholder meeting and how the Federal Reserve would react because he's seen it happen once or twice in his lifetime, probably more than twice. Let's talk about the 4 stocks he owns that are making him a lot of money despite the overall down market in 2022. Warren Buffett is a big fan of index funds, but he's more of an individual stock picker himself. His company, Berkshire Hathaway, owns companies like Geico, Duracell, Dairy Queen, insurance companies, utilities, and energy like NV Energy. If you live in the state of Nevada, you know what that is. Warren Buffett also invests in 6 stocks that are netting $4.1 billion in annual dividend income. So to put this into a different perspective, he's making $468,000 every hour, $7,800 every minute, and $130 every second. If you're brand new to my channel, my name is Sai and welcome. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 4 biggest investments Warren Buffett has, which makes up 70% of his portfolio in 2022. I don't own any of the 4 biggest stocks that he has, but I'm going to talk about if these are my potential buys in the future. I also have a lot of investment and retirement spreadsheets that you can download from my website at firesidechat.com/contact. Also, don't forget to check out what I have on my bookshelf at firesidechat.com/shopping. All right, let's get into the first stock. And the biggest investment he owns is Apple. I used to own Apple stock in 2018, and I can tell you that almost everything I own in my YouTube studio is Apple. And Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway has almost $158 billion invested in Apple, and that's 42% of Berkshire Hathaway's total invested assets. So that's almost half the company invested just in Apple. So why is Warren Buffett so convinced to invest in Apple? Warren Buffett told CNBC that he will continue to buy Apple shares because of the strength of the company's brand and ecosystem. And David Godsman, who is the director of Berkshire Hathaway, revealed that he once lost an iPhone in the back of a taxi in 2016 and freaked out. And that's when Warren Buffett realized how obsessed people had become with their iPhones. And he became convinced that iPhones are going to be an essential item for many people. He now owns about 5% of Apple right now, and Apple stock is at around $140 a share, which is down from its all-time high of $182 a share in January. The market cap is sitting around $2.3 trillion. And according to their 13F filing, and if you don't know what a 13F is, that's when the company reveals all of its stock holdings. Berkshire Hathaway bought 3.8 million Apple shares, but the allocation dropped from 48% to 42%, so there's a possibility that he reallocated some of his cash to other stocks, which decreased Apple's position to 42% of their portfolio. Warren Buffett likes companies that have solid and stable earnings for the long term. What he really likes about Apple is the EPS growth, and if you don't know what that means, it stands for earnings per share. Apple's EPS growth right now, despite the market downturn, is around 10% based on the 5-year historical return. Apple's balance sheet has over $51 billion in cash and cash equivalents and $16 billion in debt. So if anything happens, Apple could pay off their debt with the cash they have on their balance sheet, or use their annual earnings of $55 billion to pay it off right away. His $157 billion in Apple will earn him roughly $798 million in annual dividend income. I used to own some Apple shares when the market was down a lot back in 2018, and then sold them in late 2019. I'm a huge fan of Apple, and my family grew up with Apple products when my father owned an Apple retail store in Taiwan back in the 1990s, which then eventually failed. I think Apple in the long term will become a $3 trillion company. In 10 years, it might become a $4 trillion company. And Apple is paying less than 0.6% in annual dividend yield. So if I invest $1,000 in Apple, that's about $6 a year, right? If I'm looking to make just dividends, then this is probably not the right stock for me. Unless I have $10 million in Apple, then that's like $60,000 a year in dividend. I would research more on its capital growth for the next 5 to 10 years. And Apple doesn't just have iPhones, but they have computers, tablets, subscription services like Apple TV. There's even a rumor that they might have glasses or some kind of an electrical vehicle in the future. I would be interested in buying Apple in the future if the stock price continues to drop below the $2 trillion market cap. Oh man, I don't think I spelled Apple right. And that's okay because I have Grammarly. Grammarly can proofread your writing and save you so much time and make your writing look professional. I've been using Grammarly Premium since 2018. It saves me so much time from having to proofread my emails. I also use Grammarly to proofread my resume, which got me a job paying 6 figures in salary. You can get the free version of Grammarly, and I will put my affiliate link in the description below. The second biggest position Warren Buffett owns in his portfolio is Bank of America, which is about $45 billion, and he made about $870 million in annual dividend income from Bank of America, according to the 13F filing. But Bank of America is down over 22% since the beginning of the year, and I don't know if he has any intention to buy the dip. Warren Buffett loves bank stocks because bank stocks are cyclical, and when we're in a recession, banks don't make as much money from charging people interest from debts, right? Debts like mortgages, credit cards, and other loans are very profitable to banks, and that's not just to Bank of America. And when we're in a recessionary economy, people struggle to pay back their debts due to higher unemployment, and people would most likely prioritize paying for gas and groceries over, say, paying off their debts. And Federal Reserve usually decreases interest rates during a recession, but that's not the case at all for 2022 because of high inflation. Warren Buffett knew this, and that's why he started to buy stocks like Activision Blizzard, Apple, and other stocks that are undervalued because of the market sell-offs. I don't necessarily want to invest in Bank of America, but I do believe having a bank stock could help diversify my dividend stock portfolio. I bought the Chase stock back in 2020 when the stock got so beaten down to almost $90 a share. I believe JP Morgan Chase is the best bank in the world with the most upside if I had to compare it to Bank of America or Wells Fargo. This is not financial advice, and it's just what I believe because I've done extensive research on the Chase stock and I pay attention to what the stock does in the long term. Please don't buy stocks without doing any research. The third biggest stock Warren Buffett owns is Chevron, and this stock is at an all-time high at $170 a share, paying a 3.4% annual dividend yield. The stock is up almost 44% year to date, and Warren Buffett has about $28 billion invested in Chevron, and he probably believes gas and oil prices will stay high for a long period of time because we're not seeing any solution to the war in Ukraine in the coming year. He likes Chevron because instead of investing their earnings, they're giving it back to the shareholders at a 3.4% annual dividend yield. And on top of that, Warren Buffett has been on a buying streak while the market is being fearful. While he has about $7 billion invested in Chevron, he's been buying billions of dollars in Occidental Petroleum, ticker symbol OXY. So looking at the 13F, he spent $4.5 billion to buy OXY, and he's now positioned himself 12% ownership stake. And if you don't know what OXY is, it's an energy company that produces oil and gas in the US, and they have operations in the Middle East and North Africa. And Chevron is also another company that drills in the Gulf of Mexico and other locations worldwide. Not everyone wants to invest in oil or gas stocks because of their value, right? And I get it. And I'm not pushing you to buy stocks like Chevron or OXY because, for one, this is not financial advice. And two, this is just informational to let you know what Warren Buffett is buying. You could also be the type of person who leaves emotions out of investing and you just like looking at the company's numbers, valuations, and future growth. That's totally fine too. Am I going to buy Chevron? Probably not. But if I had to buy an oil or a gas stock, then I would probably just put it in my dividend stock portfolio that pays a higher dividend yield. The fourth stock Warren Buffett invests in is American Express. Now, you might say Amex is the same as any other bank like Chase or Bank of America, but it's not. So Warren Buffett has about $30 billion in American Express because of its cyclical ties and ability to take advantage of the growing economy. I'll go over some cyclical stocks later in this video, but when you hear the name American Express, you instantly think about its ties to luxury brands, right? Their business model is offering discounted rates with other businesses they partner with, and their business model has a solid loyalty to bring customers back all the time because they give him discounts. If you want to know how long Warren Buffett holds a stock, just take a look at when he bought the Amex stock. He's been holding Amex since 1964 when they went through a scandal that made the stock price fall. He looks at businesses with a respectable future instead of a business that might go bankrupt in 5 years. He's been holding Amex for 58 straight years, and let me ask you, what stock would you hold for 50 plus years? Let me know in the comment section down below. I would buy Amex in my dividend stock portfolio in the future as long as it continues to grow like it has been for the past 5 years. If I invested in Amex in 2017, the stock price has already doubled in 5 years, and dividend yield isn't as attractive as the other bank stocks, but it pays around 1.3% in annual dividend yield. The valuation is almost 15 times trailing 12-month earnings, so it's pretty cheap right now. I do notice that the stock performs based on what's going on in the travel industry, so if people stop traveling, then this stock probably won't perform as well as the others, right? If you want to look for a recession indicator, Amex is a stock I pay attention to because their income statements could predict the pattern of how people spend their money, and which could have an effect of on our overall economy. And his decision to buy Amex stock back in 1964 made him become one of the greatest investors of all time. And he looked for companies that are cyclical, defensive, and cash-generating business models that can reward their investors. So he's also been buying Activision Blizzard, which isn't exactly defensive, but he saw how undervalued that company was. And cyclical stocks are companies that provide discretionary goods and services that are in demand when the economy is doing really well. Think about cyclical stocks in the travel sector like airlines and hotels. When the pandemic happened, people stopped traveling. Now people can't wait to buy overpriced plane tickets just from one coast to another, right? Think about cyclical stocks in retail and restaurants when we're in a recession. When people start losing their jobs, one of the first things that we'll cut expenses on is buying clothes and going to restaurants, right? But when our economy is booming, then these stocks can be extremely rewarding. Warren Buffett understands that these stocks will have their ups and downs, but in the very long term, his Apple stock, Chevron, American Express, and Bank of America stocks will always come out back on top. He does not care about the short-term fear at all. So let me ask you, what are you doing right now to invest in yourself? With that said, I appreciate you watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.